Jane Philpott says there's much more to say about the SNC-Lavalin affair than what's been reported. She says that she and the former Attorney General, Jody Wilson-Raybould, are not able to share the full story unless they claim the Prime Minister waives cabinet confidence. Wilson-Raybould has now promised to share more evidence with the Justice Committee in writing that she says will prove her case that there was an attempt to politically interfere in the SNC-Lavalin case. The Prime Minister claims that both women can speak anytime they want, so why won't they? But why won't the Prime Minister give them both a waiver to talk? What details are still missing? Let's bring in MPs to talk about that. Marco Mendicino is a Liberal from Ontario. He joins us. Lisa Raitt is the Deputy Conservative Leader. She is in Toronto today. And Peter Julian is the NDP House Leader. He is with us in Ottawa. Good to see all of you. I got to start with you, Lisa Raitt. Boy, there are two pretty big bombshells. One, Jane Philpott telling Maclean's Magazine that there's more to say after the Justice Committee was shut down, and then Jody Wilson-Raybould saying she's going to submit evidence. What options do you have now, your party have, to let these two women speak?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's kind of interesting that Jody Wilson-Raybould is now going to submit evidence in the form of written submissions, and there's no Justice Committee to test her on the evidence because they decided they had heard enough, even though they were told that Jody Wilson-Raybould wanted to come back and say some more. So now we have a very unique situation where the evidence is going to come in, no ability to test it, no ability to have a conversation about it, and we'll just, I guess, receive it, and the world will continue to move on. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Let's get this done, bring them in, have a conversation, lift the waivers, relieve them of their oaths, get it done.
Peter Julian, I mean, they're two pretty important. I mean, you could react to Jane Philpott saying there's more to say. She wants a waiver. Jody Wilson-Raybould saying, look, they won't ask me to speak. I'll submit written evidence. What do you make of all this?
The Liberals have badly miscalculated, both, I think, in terms of public opinion. People find Jane Philpott and Jody Wilson-Raybould very credible. And the Liberals slagging them and trying to stop them from actually providing more information does not sit well with the public. But also, we now have information coming to the Justice Committee and Liberal members on the Justice Committee refusing to take the next steps. And so in that sense, we have information now that the Justice Committee will have to look at and rethink this Liberal majority steamroller that tried to shut down the Justice Committee hearings on this.
Marco Mendicino, what do you make of that? Will the Justice Committee now, given this evidence, recall Jody Wilson-Raybould? And two, do you trust that Jane Philpott said there's still more to say despite all that? Why won't you let her say it?
Well, it's not for me or anybody else that doesn't sit on the committee to say. And the committee has made these decisions independently, including in partnership with the opposition. So this is a new development. It's just come out. But I do think it is important to underline a couple of things. One, that the government has been very transparent with this, and including the waiver. The waiver is an extraordinary measure. It is not often, it is very sparingly implemented. And that was to enable Ms. Wilson-Raybould to testify.
The Liberals keep maintaining, look, they've had every opportunity. They don't need more of a waiver. There's been lots of testimony. What's your response to that?
Sure, they're going to take all the risk. They're going to go and get their legal opinions. They're the ones that are going to have to make sure that they're not going to get sued or disbarred or looked down upon because they broke an oath that they made when they took over a cabinet position. They're going to take all that risk. Whereas the one guy who can just say, you can speak about anything you want, let's clear the air, refuses to do so. But it's their fault? I don't know how this becomes their fault. They're whistleblowing. We're trying to find a way for them to actually tell the public what concerns they have about the ethical conduct of the Prime Minister. That's what this is all about. We've had 4 resignations. 4. I mean, it was the beginning of the week last week that we had the resignation of the clerk of the Privy Council. By the time we got to Wednesday, we forgot about it because so much more had happened.
I think it's important to point out one thing, and that is a number of legal scholars and parliamentary procedural experts have come forward to point out that Ms. Wilson-Raybould and Ms. Philpott do enjoy parliamentary privilege, which would allow them to make a statement in the House with immunity. And so the notion...
How long and when they have a 1 minute...
someone else's lawyer or your own?
I'm simply pointing out a fact and a series of opinions which have been put forward in the public domain.
So they have no duty to
that
their
should also be taken into the mix when it comes to discussing what are the opportunities that would allow both of them to make statements.
Let me pursue that. I think that's a fair point. There have been, Peter Julian, legal scholars that say whatever you say in the House of Commons is protected. Now, Jody Wilson-Raybould, the former Attorney General, General does not believe that's enough, or that that forum is the best forum. But why is your party calling for a national inquiry if they're right that these two women can talk whenever they want about this?
I trust Jody Wilson-Raybould a lot more than I trust the Liberal spin on this. And the public inquiry that Jagmeet Singh has called for is something that I think a lot of Canadians also believe has to happen now. The extent of the corruption, the contradictions that we are hearing, and the fact that SNC-Lavalin has been involved in some pretty outrageous stuff, all, I think, push us in the direction of having a public inquiry and a Prime Minister who actually keeps his promise about being transparent, which is what he promised Canadians back in 2015, would move immediately to do that.
Lisa Raitt, you're a lawyer. Just can you weigh in on this? We have heard, look, these two women are protected. They could speak in the House if they want. Some Liberals have argued that the waiver allows them to speak about whatever they want. What's your take on that? Do they have other places to speak?
Well, all very interesting for other people to assume they know all the facts in the situation when they actually don't know, because Jody Wilson-Raybould is not their client. She has her own lawyer, and she's done her own due diligence, and she's determined that what she has isn't enough to fully disclose everything she wants to disclose, and she needs more. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to assume that she's lawyered up appropriately with a Supreme Court justice formerly who has given her really good advice. The rest of the people chattering on television saying, or in the print, saying that, oh no, she can do this, she can do that. How do you know? Have you paid for a legal opinion? Are you sure? Are you willing to take the risk? Because she isn't, and really, that's all that matters.
Marco Mendicino, the CEO of SNC-Lavalin, said he never mentioned in an interview with Bloomberg, he never mentioned job losses. 9,000. He never said that the headquarters were going to move, but your government kept insisting that was one of the prime reasons to keep pressuring Jody Wilson-Raybould to give them a deferred prosecution agreement. Can you tell me where your government got that information if SNC-Lavalin says it wasn't from us?
Well, in my reading of the article, which I think does quote the CEO of SNC-Lavalin, the subtle point that he made was that that yes, there would be an impact, and that impact would not necessarily mean that his employees or who are highly skilled couldn't then also find other work. But to assert that there wouldn't be any impact on any corporation who might not be able to apply or to be eligible for contracts would not have an impact on jobs and the economy, I think is a stretch. And I think more importantly, what the Prime Minister has been very consistent on, and what Canadians would expect from any government, is that yes, we would advance jobs and impact on economy as a legitimate and relevant consideration on whether or not to use this tool.
I think Canadians might ask if you're going to advance it based on facts, however, that we want to know where those facts are from.
And the facts are SNC-Lavalin has a binding loan agreement with the Quebec pension plan that obliges them for the next half decade to be in Canada. So it's a red herring that the Liberals have been throwing out to trying to hide extraordinarily inappropriate actions by the Prime Minister that have ultimately, and some of his staff, that ultimately have led to the Attorney General losing her job when she was standing for principle and the rule of law. That is outrageous. That is why we need a public inquiry.
Long road left till the election, but this is still one of the big stops on the way. Marco Mendicino, great to see you. Lisa Raitt, Peter Julian, great to see both of you as well.